Well, it's been almost a week since we got the news that Dave Hollis passed away on Saturday, February 11th, 2023. This wasn't the way I wanted to start out doing a podcast, but this is speeding up the process because he's someone that I truly admired, cared about, and thought of as a friend. So this is not going to be pretty. You're going to see me looking at some notes, and you're going to see me doing the very best I can, but I want to get this out there to honor him. So yeah, like I said, everybody found out a week ago, Valentine's Day, actually. Woke up to a bunch of messages from a friend thread and could not believe it when I realized that the person they were talking about that had passed away was Dave. Grief really hit me hard. I would have never expected it, but nor would I have expected, Dave to be gone so soon. I'm recording this to honor him, to just basically record my thoughts and how he's affected my life and up until now and going forward. So let's talk about how I became friends with Dave Hollis. So Dave Hollis was married to Rachel Hollis for a very long time, and they have 4 kids together. And I became familiar with Rachel through her first book, and then Dave ended up leaving his job at Disney and coming to work with her at the Hollis Company. So they moved to Austin, Texas, and he became kind of a regular on a morning show that they did together. They did the Rise Together podcast. And then I think it was in May of 2020, there's a mutual post on both of their Instagrams saying that they were getting a divorce. And the world was shocked, and this was not expected, especially I think it was a couple of days after their anniversary, and they had taken a trip. So there's always 2 sides to every story. Rachel kind of chose to not really share her side. She didn't say a whole lot. But Dave became very vulnerable, very open. You could plainly see he was in a ton of pain, and he was grieving, and he was, I think he was doing everything he could. I mean, later we find out, he was doing everything he could to get her back and to save their family and his marriage. And so he started sharing a lot on social media. He started, doing a patio of peace at night.
Out here on the old patio of peace. Happy Thursday. Hope you had a good day. There's a lightning storm in the background. Hopefully you'll get to see some lightning, but I wanted to say one thing. I had an opportunity to sit with my therapist today, virtually, of course, and we talked about the idea of both, the idea that you can hold hope and grief, the idea that you can be optimistic and sad, the idea that you can be excited about the future and uncertain about the present, and that there's permission to hold space for both. been a strange mix of days where I feel so excited about what's happening and also fall into really, really sad moments. And I just want to normalize that we are all collectively experiencing something that none of us have ever been through, right? You don't have to be going through a divorce to be going through grief. We're all grieving something inside of this weird quarantine that we continue to experience. We're all letting go of some kind of normal that we used to know and missing the connection and the community that used to exist. And we, of course, find silver linings in all of the beauty that ends up presenting itself in the circumstance we find ourselves in, and still be sad and still mourn what we miss and still long for the thing we can't wait to return when it ends up actually returning. And so if you find yourself conflicted by the duality of these feelings, you're super normal. And the great thing is, you don't even have to take my word for it. I mean, I am personally paying for a therapist to affirm that this is a totally normal thing on behalf of everyone who is watching this right now. This man, he went to school for an extended period of time, as far as I know. And he suggests that there is normalness in holding both. And so I just want to encourage anyone who feels confused or crazy with the roller coaster of these times, that the roller coaster is a thing that every single one of us is experiencing. It doesn't make you weird. It doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you not enough. It makes you human and totally and completely normal. So says my therapist, David. So on behalf of everyone in this community, I'm just going to keep buying David a boat. I mean, it feels like I'm buying him a boat at this point, but he deserves it because his ability to make me feel normal in abnormal times, part of what affords me some peace on this dang-back patio on a Thursday night when I'm sitting at this house by myself, waiting for some lightning to show up in the background. I hope everybody had a great Thursday. I have a sense, I have a feeling tomorrow's going to be a good day. And I want to encourage you to look for the signs of goodness in the midst of feeling overwhelmed, in the midst of it feeling heavy, in the midst of sadness even. If you go on the hunt for that goodness, I promise you, I am 100% certain you will find it.
And he started running a lot, jogging a lot, and he would just share everything and be so vulnerable and open. And I really connected with him. And before that, I connected with him on a different level because he, during his podcast with Rachel in the morning show, you know, Rachel is a very gung-ho person, get up and get things done, have a plan, and knock things out. And I related more to Dave because he was kind of like, you know, you have to kick him in the butt kind of person, not really up to like getting up first thing in the morning. Really needed some help getting motivated. And I definitely related to him in that way. And I forgot to mention that I ended up going to Rachel's Rise conference in, I believe it was 2019 in Dallas, Texas. It was either 18 or 19. And so it was funny because it was her conference and everything, but he was a speaker along with many other wonderful people. And we just thought it was all great because we didn't really see Rachel except on stage, but Dave would come out, you know, before she talked and talk to everybody. And of course, everybody was, you know, loved him and wanted to get his autograph and stuff like that. And I remember taking pictures from where I was sitting. I did not end up going down there because my logical mind basically said, well, by the time I go down there and wait in that line, Rachel or someone else will be back on stage and he'll have to stop. So I didn't do it. So anyway, I just thought and he's super funny. And I relate to that because I love to laugh and I love to make people laugh. So, this is just some guy on Instagram, some guy who I followed, and I admired his vulnerability and his openness to share what he was going through in such a rough time. He's getting divorced from a very public figure, and he's a public figure himself, and he still, in that pain, was trying to help. Still wanted to move forward and make a difference in this world. And in case you didn't know, Rachel and Dave had 3 kids, and then they fostered 2 sets of twins, I believe, and then they adopted Noah. So they felt that when they fostered, they were going to keep these kids, and it just didn't work out. But all throughout, since that time, he has been a huge supporter of foster care. He had the Dave Hollis Giving Fund. He participated with the National Angels Foster Care Community and Together We Rise. He really felt strongly about helping those in need, especially foster children, realizing what a difficult situation that is for all parties involved. So he really wanted to give back. And I think that that's, something that was so near and dear to his heart. And I admire that too. Him creating his own foundation to give back part of his money. So anyway, I talked a little bit about how I got to know him just online, and you just kind of connect with certain people and you think, wow, I wonder if this person is like this in real life, right? This down-to-earth person, this funny person, is he like that in real life, or is this just all for show? And so he started dating Heidi Powell. I think it was 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was started during the pandemic. And, well, wait a minute. I think it was before. Well, anyway, regardless. He started dating Heidi Powell, who I really wasn't that familiar with. She was on extreme weight loss with her husband at the time, Chris Powell. And I didn't really watch the show, But then this mysterious person came into Dave's life. And, all of us who were invested in Dave, cared about Dave, were like, who is this? Who is this person? And, we got to know Heidi a little bit through him, and I started following her, and, she seemed like an amazing person. She also has 4 kids, and they just seem to be an ideal couple in terms of just being nice, genuinely nice people, and wanting to help people, and being genuine and authentic, open, honest, vulnerable. So they got together and had a challenge. I'm trying to remember if it was during the pandemic. Time flies so fast. I think it may have been like September of 21. And I didn't join that one, but I watched, and then I was curious. And so it was January of 2022, I believe, which is the second challenge, and I joined. And you do like lives with them, and there was a nutrition coaching class, and so Dave was involved. Dave and Heidi were doing this together, and it really started because Dave really didn't know how to work out much, in terms of like lifting weights and exercises and pushing himself. And of course, Heidi is a trainer, so this challenge kind of came about like, hey, this is how Heidi is doing what she's doing with me. And, if you want to help too, and so it just started like that. So second challenge I'm in, and during the lives, they're doing these lives together, and they're really funny. And keep in mind, like Heidi has said, she wasn't used to really letting herself have a lot of fun. And Dave is a very fun person, and he brought out this fun side of Heidi, this light side, and you would see him going on vacations and stuff and just doing goofy things like crashing weddings and stuff like that. So it was really great to see their interaction and see how much they love each other and had fun together. And you could see that like together, and then they were putting that out toward you. Like they cared so much about what they were putting out with this product, with this Get Fit challenge. And the nutritional education part was great, because you were on a live Zoom and you could ask questions. So you're face to face, but online, So of course, I asked some questions at times, So you just got to know Dave a little bit more than just his lives or whatever, because you were interacting. So it was about a year ago, and Mindy Henderson, he had gone to some Rise conferences, and I kind of knew her through that because I had gone. She had a podcast, and she invited people on Facebook, like, hey, I'm going to do a Zoom with Dave Hollis. If you want to be on this Zoom, here's the dial-in information. So I'm like, okay. So I'm, in this challenge, and I think I'm jogging around the basement, and working at the same time. So there's a video recording of this on YouTube if anyone's interested in watching it. Not that you need to be. However, at the time, I was still searching for what more am I meant to do in this world. And I really fell upon, I think I want to write a book, right? Which I've always wanted to write a book. And I really felt strongly that that's what I was meant to do. And I really wanted to help like divorced women, right? I wanted to help divorced women, shed that shame and guilt, because there's such a stigma around it. So I thought, oh, I'm going to write a book. And so when you were allowed to ask questions at the end of Minnie's interview with Dave, I pop in and I say what I'm doing. And well, first of all, I just said, hi, Dave, it's so nice to meet you. He's like, well, and I said, I've been, looking forward to meeting you. I said, you probably think I'm stalking you with the challenge, and now I'm on this live. He goes, Christine, is that you outside my window? And I was like, no. And he's like, just kidding, So that's the kind of sense of humor that Dave had. He's like, I'm really happy to meet you too, right? And so that was just so cool. And I said, just, can you fill me in a little bit? I'm thinking about writing this book, and I don't really know how to start. And how did you start writing a book? Because I know it wasn't something that you had done before. And what did you do? And he took the time to go through step by step for about 10 minutes how he did it, like how he started, what he thought about, the steps he took. And he was just so nice and giving of his time. And I really loved that, So, and he was very gracious with everyone. So that was wonderful. And so then, I'm pretty sure that was a year ago. Yeah, it was January of 2022. And so during that challenge, Dave had to go away, and we weren't really sure of all the details. After the challenge was over, there was this meetup kind of thing, like a seminar, and it was called Show Up with Heidi. And it was in Arizona in April of last year. And a lot of us signed up, but it was a small group. It was 100 or less. And Dave fortunately was done with a program at that time, and he was attending. We all wanted Dave to attend because we all had found that we'd gotten close to him and cared so much about him, and obviously wanted to, share our love with him and our support in person. So he was there. But you could tell that he was in a new space. And I remember, like, the first night, they came into the room. It was on Monday night, and they came into the room. They were introduced, and he was introduced, and then, Heidi spoke for a little while, and as they were coming toward the back of the room, I was sitting with a group of girls, like, including my roommate, Jenny, and we happened to be at this back corner table. And Dave had met Jenny before, I think at a book signing. And, like, online, too. She was in the challenge as well. And, so he kind of stopped. And, like, he was talking to her and stuff like that. I don't know if I hugged him then or not, but he is super tall in person, by the way. Really tall. And then with Heidi next to him, she's pretty short and he's pretty tall. So they're like over a foot difference, I think. So he was just so nice. And Heidi was very nice too, but they were kind of rushing off because we were doing something else that night. So I think it was the next day, Dave spoke, and he just went up on stage, and he started to share more about his time in rehab. And we had found out along the way that he was in rehab for alcohol, and how he had had trouble with alcohol. And as with a lot of us, Dave went through difficult times, and he got through them by drinking. Like, when things got really bad, that's when he would seek that out and overdo it. And he was obviously functional, right? Because we hadn't heard about him going to rehab before, hadn't heard anything. Really, like, he had said in the past that he had sought out alcohol and overdid it at times, but never to this extent where he realized he had a real problem. And he admitted that when his second book came out, Built Through Courage, which is amazing, it's online. There was a live he did on Instagram on a Saturday morning, I think, right after the book came out, and he was feeling so much pressure, so much doubt in himself, so much uncertainty, like the first book he put out with Rachel kind of behind him, and so he had her popularity and her success to, like, support him. And this was his first venture on his own, and he put so much stress and pressure on himself, and there was, like, another outbreak of COVID, and so all of his appearances, like, got canceled. So he wasn't going to get the exposure. He's worried about the New York Times list, like, just trying to match up to what he had done before. And he lost it. He showed up as the worst version of himself, and unfortunately it was recorded for the world to see. And I did watch it after it happened, like, right after he recorded it, before it was taken down, and I thought, something's wrong. This isn't the Dave we've all come to know and love, right? So it turns out that he had been abusing alcohol and everything else, and this kind of went up and down. Like, he did a little bit of like a brief little tour on his own to promote his book, but then by Christmas, I think, like the holidays, he realized he was going down that hole again. And he went to Heidi and said that he had sought out this rehab program and he needed to go. And this was by that point that he had committed, I think January, and we had just started this challenge, and Heidi was like, oh my gosh, I've never done one by myself. So she had a whole bunch of feelings, but of course she supported him because she loved him. And so he went to rehab for, I'm trying to remember how long. I want to say 4 to 6 weeks, maybe 6. Like, occasionally Dave would pop up in the lives, but not every time. And so anyway, reverting back to the conference and him on stage, and he was up there with Heidi, and he opened up his heart and soul to all of us there. There wasn't a dry eye in the room because he was just so upfront about how he used alcohol as a crutch, and he realized how he had hurt his family and Heidi and, people he had cared about, and, his past relationship and all of that, and how he was he was changing. He learned to reconnect with God. And he had started, I think, really diving more deeply into his faith after he and Rachel split. But this was different, and he really prioritized it even more. And he focused on, like, his family, his children, right? And so you saw him just pour so much into his kids. Like, he did not miss anything, right? And he also loved Heidi, and he would fly back and forth to Arizona because he's he is outside Austin, Texas, and she was outside Phoenix, and so he would go back and forth, and you could just see at the conference, like, his willingness to share with everyone and to bare his soul. And he was just a human, right? Like anybody else. I mean, he was just Dave. And that, there wasn't, and he even said to all of us, like, you are my community. Without you, I wouldn't have gotten through this. I've gotten so close to this community, and I consider all of you my friends. And I remember bringing his book to the conference, and he was signing the book. He was so happy to do it. And I remember it was, I think it was the last morning, because I had my suitcase, and he was talking to a bunch of people, and I went up to him and I was like, Dave, would you mind, signing your book for me? And he was like, sure. He goes, I'll sign it and I'll bring it back to you. And I said, okay. So he did. And let me read what he wrote. He wrote, Christine, thank you so much for all the support and for choosing to show up for yourself. Keep going. Here's to the courage to continue stepping into who you were meant to be. Let's go, Dave Hollis. So that was Dave's saying, by the way. Let's go. And he would go, let's go. So that's a Dave thing. And so anyway, I was very touched that he took the time to do that. And so I got to hug Dave a couple of times, like, really tall guy, but gave like the best hugs. He was just so nice. And let me tell you, his devotion to Heidi during that weekend, like those few days, was something to see. I mean, if there was anything she needed, he ran and got it. He was right there for her, helping and supporting and, you know, holding her, and they had so much fun together. And speaking of Dave's sense of humor, so the one night, it was the last night, it was Tuesday night, and they had an improv group come in, and it was really fun. And so Dave got up there doing one of the improv skits now. So improv means you just go off the cuff. You just go with the flow, and he was so funny with everything. So Dave definitely had a very naturally wonderful sense of humor. In fact, this was during our challenge a few months ago, and Heidi is doing a live, and they're in the live together, and she's like, you know, your shirt just isn't working for me. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll go change. And oh, I have the video, but anyway, so he goes, oh, okay, I'll go change. So he comes down back to the live and is wearing that tank top. Yeah, that's Heidi's tank top. I mean, we all lost it because it was so funny, and it's so Dave. Like, it's so Dave. So that's just how he is. He lived to help people, be kind to people, accept people, build people up, and make them laugh. I mean, he had his faults, and this is where I really related to Dave, because he wasn't perfect, and he never claimed to be, and he tried every day to do better and be better, but he admitted his wrongdoings. You know, he took responsibility and ownership, and you know, especially after rehab, you could just see he was still on uncertain ground, shaky ground with himself, and I don't think he trusted himself quite yet. But you could see him get stronger and stronger and stronger. And, you know, then, you know, he wrote a children's book with Noah, his daughter, which, you know, it's amazing. So I think another thing I really admire about Dave was he faced his fears head on. He did a triathlon? Yeah, and he wasn't good at it at all, but he did it. He did like an Ironman competition. He faced his fears and just did it. And I think Heidi had a lot to do with that, because she helped him believe in himself, believe he was capable of more. Like, I remember him saying, like, he was like, oh, I don't get buff, you know, I'm not a buff. And like, and he'll tell you, you know, you never thought he was a runner, but obviously he was a runner. And then Heidi was like, no, you have the greatest composition. You can be buff. And she pushed him, and he, you know, every day would work out, and every day would say, I don't feel like it. I don't feel like working out, but I'm going to do it. And in fact, sometimes he would get in the challenges and do a live. You know, him and Heidi would be working out together, and he was so funny because he would be complaining, you know, and Heidi would say, yep, Dave's here to whine, because, again, he wasn't out there to put up a front and act like it was easy and it was perfect and he loved doing it. He just was like, I know I'm going to feel better when I'm done, and I'm going to do it. And I really relate to that because, I'm not someone that loves working out, but I do like how I feel afterward. So he just was a real person. And my husband would make fun of me and say, oh my God, are you stalking him again? Are you stalking them again? And I'd say, you don't understand. We've met. We're all friends. He called us all friends. And that was just Dave. Like, Dave was one of those people, like, if you need a friend, if you need help, reach out to me. I'm here for you. And he meant it. And I wanted to share a couple of things, if I can find it. See, amateur here. Okay, I was trying to find he sadly, but probably good, he was at a mastermind a month ago with every person you can think of. Where did I write this down? He was at this mastermind about a month ago. And, oh, I know where, okay. And on January 18th, I'm going to read you what he wrote. And this was pictures of everyone at the mastermind. January 18th, my cup is full. So grateful for this group of visionaries, world changers, and friends. This is singularly the best collection of peeps I've ever spent time with. So grateful for the way they serve the world and pour so generously into each of us every day. Thank you to Brendan Burchard for having the idea years ago to start bringing us together. That you'd create a space that's about abundance and the power of supporting each other for the chance of doing more good in this world is so rare and so incredible. Other masterminds come with a cost, and this comes with none, other than our commitment to double down on our attempts to be a light in this world. It's a reflection of how much you care about being light yourself. I can't encourage you enough to seek out the folks in this crew. Follow them, learn from them. Their hearts for service is beyond explanation, and the tools each offer lead to transformation and freedom. For me, to walk into this space after an intentionally slower year was a little intimidating, to be honest. Being surrounded by friends excelling at so many things had me worried I'd be overwhelmed as I get ready to jump back in. It was the opposite. So inspiring, so motivating. It's what great friends do when you need to be reminded of the good you can do. I leave this weekend so excited for what sits in front of me. Every bit of impact in this coming year has the fingerprints of these extraordinary people all over it. Grateful, so grateful. Let me know what you want to know about Mastermind. Okay, and then he was going to do a podcast. So here were the people present. Brendan Burchard, Jamie Kern-Lima, Randy Garn, Jasmine Starr, Mel Robbins, Mel Abraham, Ed Milet, Amy Porterfield, Dean Graziosi, Jeff Walker, Jonathan Fields, Craig Clemens, Snoopa, Natalie Elizabeth Ellis, Chris Harder, Tom Bilyeu, Alex Ortner, Daniel Canty, Matthew Hussey, Lewis Howes, Martha Higuereta, Heidi Powell, Gloria Antonmo, Lisa Bilyeu, Evan Carmichael, Anthony Trucks, Trent Shelton, Jenna Kutcher, Jay Shetty, Lori Harder. So these were his friends. These were people that loved and supported him and who he looked up to. And it's just how Dave was. Like, he couldn't believe he was there amongst these people. But he was influenced by them, and he was inspired by them to do great things. And sadly, his legacy is what it is now. And Dave has inspired me to just do this. This is why I felt strongly about this being the first recorded podcast, because Dave was the most special person, and I did get to know him, and he was my friend, and I loved him, and I related to him so much, and I want to carry on where he left off, because I know it would be important to him, and I know he'll be happy, if we all do that, if we all continue on. So that is my goal. My goal is to carry on where he left off. And, to be as vulnerable, as open, as honest, as authentic. Things you want are never easy, but they are worth it if they're important to you. Heidi posted, and she put in a quote or a saying. Anyway, something written by this gentleman, Henry Scott Holland. I'm going to close with that. Death is nothing at all. It does not count. I have only slipped away into the next room. Nothing has happened. Everything remains exactly as it was. I am I, and you are you, and the old life that we lived so fondly together is untouched, unchanged. Whatever we were to each other, that we are still. Call me by the old familiar name. Speak of me in the easy way which you always used. Put no difference into your tone. Wear no forced air of solemnity or sorrow. Laugh as we always laughed at the little jokes that we enjoyed together. Play, smile, think of me, pray for me. Let my name be ever the household word that it always was. Let it be spoken without an effort, without the ghost of a shadow upon it. Life means all that it ever meant. It is the same as it ever was. There is absolute and unbroken continuity. What is this death but a negligible accident? Why should I be out of mind because I am out of sight? I am but waiting for you, for an interval, somewhere very near, just around the corner. All is well. So to Dave, I know you're up there with Grandma Lee, your 100-year-old grandmother, who probably looks like she's now 25 again. And I know you guys are keeping each other company, and you have lots of other great company up there. I'm glad you're at peace with your God, and let's go.